Hey, hello, I'm Kråkan, also known as Corvus Cornix, and welcome to Classic Movie Rambles, where I talk about old movies that I found in my closet while cleaning. This week's movie is Edward Scissorhands, and it was made in 1990. It's about 1 hour and 45 minutes long, and the movie starts with a panning shot over a dark castle on top of a hill, showing some dust and robots and whatnot. And then the intro credit rolls, and cutting to an old woman looking out a window at the top, this castle top of the hill. And she is telling a story to her granddaughter about the inventor that used to live up there and how he created life from a machine and how he basically left it there because he died. And then cutting to a small suburban area where a woman is driving around in her car trying to sell makeup to the neighborhood. Her name is Peg, and her makeup job is not going so well, so she decides to go up on the top of the hill where the castle is at. And she arrives at this beautiful garden that this character Edward has made. And Edward is the creation of the inventor, and he has scissors for hands, so he's an expert at like crafting things, cutting bushes and whatnot. But she doesn't know that yet. So she knocks on the door, but there's no one there to like greet her. So she goes inside, and Edward spots her from one of the windows. And Peg goes up the stairs, and she eventually finds Edward. And she's a bit scared at first because, scissors for hands, but he's a real gentle guy. And she helps him to disinfect some of his cuts, because it turns out if you have scissors for hands, you're gonna cut yourself really bad. So she helps him with that, and she decides to take him back to her home. Nothing can go wrong, right? So she takes him back to her home, and all the neighboring ladies are oogling out their window, wondering who this guy that Peg is driving in her car, who is this new guy? And it starts this funny scene where they're all call up each other on the phone, and they're gossiping, and because they're housewives, right, they have nothing better to do. So we cut to Peg's home, and they look at the family photos. Like I forgot about the father's name is Bill, and then the son's name is Kevin, and the daughter's name is Kim. And Edward falls for Kim immediately because she's really pretty. She is played by Winona Ryder. She was in Alien Resurrection, I think, and she was also in a Dracula movie. She's a real pretty actress, so I understand why. But anyway, he gets new clothes, and trying to put them on with having like scissor for hands is not working out. So he pokes a hole in like a water bed, and he sprays in water, and he just puts like a pillow over it because when it seems to work. And then he gets help with the suspensors and everything. And it's kind of a funny scene, like everything is like built on the whole thing that he has having problem to adapt to society, and he has scissors for hands. So Peg tries to help Edward with his cut up face, and she applies the makeup to it, and she realizes that the makeup is not doing a good job, and she reevaluates like her job basically. So Edward goes outside, and he cuts and trims some bushes, and he makes it into a T-Rex, which I thought was funny. And Peg goes to check the answer machine again, and it's filled up again. So it turns out that one of the religious nuts that lives next door, this old lady, she confronts Edward in the back of the garden. It's just like, "You're the devil," and she basically leaves. And it's like, well, I don't know. He has done nothing wrong so far, but yeah. So the ladies in the neighborhood, or the women, I should say, they press Peggy enough, so they make a barbecue to introduce Edward. And Edward has a flashback at this barbecue in the past where the inventor played by Vincent Price actually realized that Edward is kind of sad, and he wants to give him a heart. Basically, he has like this machine that makes gingerbread cookies, and at the end of the line there is this other machine that chops like lettuce. And that's basically Edward, what he was from the beginning. So the women at this party, back at the barbecue, they offer stuff to Edward to eat, like coleslaw and everything they made, because they're kind of, I guess they are horny because there's a new guy in town, and all the men are always gone during the day, and this is the only thing they have oogling on. It's really weird anyway. And this woman called Joyce, she is making a move on him. And later Edward has a flashback to his inventor friend again, or his mentor, and he's reading him like a book, I think it was. And this is funny scene where Kim arrives from a trip, and there's like this nighttime, and Edward is sleeping in her bed because there's like the guest room or whatever, and she arrives in there. She starts to take off her clothes, and she realizes that he's there, and she freaks out, and Edward is confused, and the parents try to calm her down, but she's hysterical, and Edward goes out into the hallway, and she freaks out again, and that leads to Bill taking Edward down into the basement. And he offers him what he calls lemonade, but it's actually strong whiskey, and Edward has never had a strong drink in his life, so, he more or less gurgled the thing, and then they continue to drink more, and Bill and Edward basically get hammered, and it's this funny scene where Edward is like standing at this makeup bar, and he's like having his hand on his head like this, and Edward is like just standing like he doesn't know what's happening, and Peg tried to introduce Kim to Edward to make a better like second impression, and he just gurgle and he falls over, which I thought was super funny. And then the next day, Edward is now cutting bushes at Joyce's house. He makes like these two swans kissing each other, and then Joyce offers him some lemonade, and he pukes because he thinks it's whiskey. Later, Kevin takes Edward to show and tell in class, and even later they're at the family house again, and they're about to eat, and Edward is chopping up some pork, and he drops it into Kim's lap. So he's not made a good impression so far on the whole family and everything, but he's trying, and Peg believes in him. So even later he's doing some gardening work, and he sees like one of the dogs has like so much fur, so he cuts off the fur, and the women love it. So he gets to, there's a big line where he gets to cut all the dog's hair, and then Joyce wants him to cut her hair. And it's this funny scene where he just start moving his hands real quick, and she's losing her hair like a nice short haircut, and she's like having an orgasm. And I thought like, oh, okay, this is kind of crazy, but I'm gonna go with it because it's funny. And then Edward is going with Bill to like the mall or the shopping area to get his scissors kind of sharpened up and whatnot. And Edward sees Kim there with her boyfriend Jim. And later Edward helps Kim to get inside the house, and Jim has this brilliant idea which come in play like very soon. He basically lockpicks the door with one of his scissors. And later there's like an interview on TV because apparently now Edward is famous. So they interview him, and of course Kim is watching the whole thing on TV, and she realized that actually Edward is a nice guy, and he loves her because he looks right into the camera when the reporter says like, is there someone special in your life? Yeah. So Joyce takes Edward to this new place. It's basically like a hair salon, and where he's supposed to work. And she takes him back to the back area, and she tries to seduce him, and he gets confused and scared, and he runs off. And he's supposed to meet up with the family later. They're about to dine out at this place, so they're about to sit down and have this nice dinner. And Peg asks him like, so did the job and everything go well? Did you and Joyce make it, or blah blah blah? And he says, well, she took me into the back room and she took all of her clothes off. And Peg's like, but. And the other family members like, what is going on? And the dad seems so careless. He doesn't even listen to the conversation. Well, I'm glad, Edward, that things are going well for you, and all and everything is starting out fine. It's kind of this funny scene. Then later, Edward goes to the bank to get some money, but he doesn't have a social security number. He hasn't had a job in his life, so he can't get the money. So even later, Jim asks Kim if she can ask Edward to help them out with a heist, because they want to have a better van. So Jim's father has like insurance on his house, so if someone breaks in and steals stuff, they will basically get money for it. So they want the insurance money, I guess, to buy a new van or something like that. So they bring Edward along, and he manages to get captured inside, and he gets taken to prison, or they interrogate him. And this kind of sad scene, because he takes the blame for everything because he likes Kim, so he basically just takes the whole blame and everything. And later Kim apologizes to Edward, and because she really, thinks it's a bad thing that Jim didn't stand up for it and took the blame. After all, his father would understand, but no. So Edward gets really angry and he destroys the wallpapers. And this is during like Christmas celebration. So the family deals with Edward at the moment, and there even later there's like a scene where Edward is making an ice sculpture outside, and he's moving his hands really quick, and he's chipping away at the ice so fast that it turns into snow. And she goes outside, Kim, and she dances in the snow. It's like this beautiful kind of slow motion effect. So Jim arrives and he starts to yell at Edward, and he gets startled and he cuts Kim on the hand. So, and there's a fight between Edward or Jim. Or Jim is just being an asshole basically and pushing him around, and he managed to cut Jim as well. So Edward gets angry and he goes through the neighborhood basically, because he's angry at Jim and everyone is against him. So he goes through the neighborhood and destroys the sculpture that he's made, and he basically sits down, but the cops are looking for him, so he can't have a breather. And then Edward he goes back to the place where Kim was, and she is of course unharmed. She has a little cut on the hand. So she basically gives him a hug, and she basically breaks up with Jim at this point as well, because he's a total asshole. So Edward has a flashback to the day when the inventor was supposed to give him realistic looking hands. So he holds them up, and the inventor has like a heart attack or something, or dies of old age, and he passes away. And it's this sad scene because now Edward is all alone, and we kind of understand what happened to him throughout the story. So basically what happens is Jim is obviously drunk at this point. He's been downing whiskey, and he asks his friend to drive him so he can go talk to Kim, which is always a good idea, drinking and driving and all that. So his friend drives the van, and of course he's drunk, and Kevin is about to go home from like a Christmas party with his friends, and he's about to get run over by the van. So Edward steps in and he tackles Kevin out of the way, but he scratches him up with the Scissorhands, and it's all this confusion again, and Edward is forced to run. So he runs up at the top of the hill again where he feels safe. Kim tells him just to run. So the police officer is kind of nice. He chases him to the foot of the hill, and then he fires his gun in the air, and he tells the people that nothing to see here, it's just go home. I think he kind of realized that Edward wasn't a bad guy to begin with, and he doesn't want any more trouble in his little town basically. But the whole mob is not having it, so they go after him. But Kim goes first. She has this beautiful white dress, and she runs up the hill, and she finds Edward. And then Jim arrives with a gun, because he is really stupid, I guess. And there's like this fight where he defends himself, and in this desperation, Jim loses the gun, and Edward tries to defend Kim, and he is more or less forced to kill off Jim, and Jim falls out like a window, and he falls down to the ground, and he dies. And there's this sad scene where Kim realized that Edward can't go with her again, so she gives him a kiss, and he's forced to stay there basically. And she goes down to talk to the angry mob and tells him that Edward has basically died, and because the roof fell in or something, she lies basically, and they believe her, and they go back to town. And then we get to like the old lady telling the story again, and we find out that she's actually Kim, but much older now. And her granddaughter says like, why didn't you go back to that place, like, Grandma? Why didn't you go see him again? And there's this story where she tells that it never used to snow in this place, but when Edward returned to the castle, it started to snow. So we have this beautiful panning shot with a nice garden and everything, and Edward working on ice sculptures, and I think it's a sculpture of Kim actually. And while he's cutting off at the ice, it turns into snow, and it starts to snow down at the side. And there's like this flashback to a younger Kim dancing in the snow again, as it were. So what do I think about this movie? It's a really nice movie. It shows a lot of heart, and it was kind of a funny thing. I watched it during Valentine's Day, and I couldn't help to sympathize with the guy, because he was a robot in the beginning, and he was gradually made into a human, but not complete. So he doesn't have all the emotions that I guess normal people will have. You basically like a child, but he was very gifted in what he did. So he was a perfect gardener, a perfect like barber, a perfect or good at making sculptures, I guess. So when he tried to adapt to the society that was really afraid and really didn't know what he was, and he didn't know how to act, everything turns out in the end. But it's a really lovely, nice movie to watch, and Tim Burton did a really good job. And I think like Johnny Depp is in all of his movies somehow, even if he's not acting, he's maybe voice acting and whatnot. So I can actually really recommend this movie. So anyway, thanks for listening and or watching, and take care.